On the bustling streets of Yangzhou, bright fireworks flash one after another, filling the evening with colorful bustle. Near the intersection, a line has formed at the main entrance to a luxurious building where influential and respected guests have gathered. Security guards are on duty at the door, letting visitors in strictly according to the list. A woman passing by asks her companion what kind of event is causing such a stir. The young man replies that today is the 30th anniversary of a famous organization called the Lin Group, and the entire high society of Yangzhou is present at the celebration. Irritated security guards block the entrance, preventing passers-by from peering into the luxuriously decorated banquet hall. Meanwhile, a young man on a motorcycle stops at the entrance. He clutches a piece of paper with an address in his hand and, checking it, makes sure that he is in the right place at the appointed time. His name is Lin Zhang. Suddenly, a group of strong men appears behind him, looking more like a street gang than ordinary passers-by. One of them, judging by his look and demeanor, is their leader. He looks at Lin intently and unkindly. However, the very next day, the same man bows respectfully to Lin and calls him Lord. From his bosom, he takes out a small bowl, saying that it is a rare gift ordered by Lin himself. To find it, they had to go around all the antique shops in the city. Hearing the word "sir," Lin suddenly rolls up his sleeve, raises his hand, and hits the leader hard on the cheek. He angrily reminds them that he has repeatedly asked them not to address him like that. The witnesses of the scene freeze in stupefaction. Then he warns them not to appear in public in such an expensive car and strictly demands that they refrain from such addresses in the future. All the gang members simultaneously fall to their knees and begin to apologize. They promise not to repeat such mistakes again and assure that they understand everything. Lin slowly takes out a handkerchief from his pocket and carefully wipes his palm. On the way, he says that under no circumstances does he want the Lin family to know his true situation. The Lin family settled in Yangzhou 30 years ago and has played an important role in the city's life ever since. They were the founders of Changchun. Their descendants have outstanding qualities and are often compared to dragons and phoenixes by the people. Today, a grand banquet is being held to celebrate the birthday of the respected elder, Mrs. Zhang Ling. Lin Zhang walks into the room with a reserved expression, holding a gift box. Inside is the same cup that the gang leader brought. At the entrance, the hostess read out the guests' names, gifts, and wishes. The CEO of Fenhai wished Miss Lin good luck and presented her with a gilded plaque. Mr. Wang Fushan, chairman of Kunyuan, sent her exquisite jewelry made of gold, jade, and precious stones. A representative of the Jiangnam Tanners Guild wished her blessings comparable to the boundless East Sea at the foot of the Nanshan Mountains. Finally, it is time to announce Lin Jian's name and his gift for the hero of the occasion. The hostess of the ceremony reverently calls out Lin's name, and the hall freezes in anticipation. When Lin announces the gift he has arrived with, everyone in the room begins to look around, showing keen interest. There are chuckles and whispers in the crowd. Someone wonders if this is the same person who recently tried to get into the Lin household. They say that the eldest lady refused to let him in last month. The guests begin to mutter disapprovingly, pointing out that the Lin family is celebrating an anniversary and the matriarch's birthday, and that their son-in-law, Lin Zhangxuan, has come with some kind of inappropriate gift. His wife, the young and elegant Lin Qinghuang, stands nearby and hears every word. Some of the guests think that such a beauty was married to a nobody. It's just a shame. Lin Qinghuang stands silently among the guests with a downcast face, looking down in shame. Every word thrown at her or her husband seems to hurt her heart. Lin Qinghuang angrily walked towards Lin Zhangxuan and demanded an explanation as to why he had not bought something decent with the money he had given her. Lin Zhangxuan shamelessly and embarrassedly stated that the porcelain bowl he brought was a family heirloom that had been passed down since the early days of the dying dynasty, and it was worth no less than $60 million. The man proudly added that he had managed to buy it for a paltry sum, less than $100. Suddenly, Lin Chuan, one of the younger members of the family, stepped out from the crowd and mockingly declared that even stupidity must have a limit. He reproached his son-in-law for his complete inability to choose a gift and invited everyone to look at what he himself had prepared in honor of his grandmother. Two men entered the banquet hall, carrying a huge evergreen jasper tree set in a massive pot. Lin Chuan handed it to the grandmother with the wish for eternal life and prosperity for the entire family. Elderly Mrs. Lin was delighted by this gesture and immediately thanked her grandson for such a valuable and symbolic gift. In an effort to smooth over the awkwardness and hide her husband's shame, Lin Qinghuang approached her grandmother with a promise to prepare a more suitable gift for her soon. However, the irritated old lady did not even want to listen to her granddaughter. She snapped that she did not need anything, and even if there were no gifts, it would not change anything for the Lin family. Taking Lin Chuan's arm, she walked away, explaining that the banquet was about to begin and she needed to be ready. She asked her grandson to accompany her. As Granny Lin left, she cast a disdainful glance at Lin Qinghuang and her husband, saying that they didn't have to sit at the main table at all. Lin Qinghuang stood on the red carpet with her arms hanging down. The guests all around her murmured in surprise as they discussed how it was possible that the daughter of a noble family couldn't even sit at the main table. Some people chuckled, others shook their heads sympathetically, but the general opinion was clear. Her father had squandered his position, and his daughter had married an empty and useless blockhead. Lin Zhongshuan, seeing his wife holding back her tears, realized that he was wrong. He thought that she didn't care how her family treated her, but it seemed that was not the case at all. He remembered that he himself had agreed to join this clan only in order to live unnoticed, away from other people's attention, but now he understood. She was not indifferent. At this time, at the banquet table, old Mrs. Lin slammed her fist on the table and ordered everyone to stop their meaningless conversations. She loudly declared that the Zhu company was growing rapidly and had already overtaken the Lin Corporation, and then turned to the younger members of the family and asked what they were going to do next. Lin Chuan tried to calm her down, reminding her that today was a family holiday and she shouldn't worry, especially considering her injury. But these words only added fuel to the fire. The old lady, seething with anger, asked him whether he thought she would live another couple of years, and which of the young people was ready to take the first step towards cooperation with the Zhu group. She promised to generously reward anyone who could establish relations with this group, but a tense silence fell over the table. Into this oppressive silence, a familiar voice suddenly burst, sounding from the crowd and breaking the protracted pause. The voice that came from the crowd belonged to Zhang Chuan. He raised his distraught wife's hand and loudly declared that King Huang would be the one to discuss cooperation with the Zhu group. However, Lin Qinghuang herself, who was standing nearby, clearly did not understand what he was talking about. In the past, Lin Zhongshuan was called the King of Hell. The entire criminal world bowed before his name. Mafia clans gave him their loyalty in exchange for protection. Shadow networks obeyed him, and half of the world's capital was at his disposal. But one day, Zhang Xuan rejected it all, the power, the wealth, the underworld, and disappeared to start a new life. That's when he met his future wife, Lin Qinghuang. Therefore, no one in the Lin family had the slightest idea about his past. Standing in the banquet hall with his hand on his wife's shoulder, he realized that he had never cared how his relatives looked at him, but now he was determined. He would not allow them to humiliate her anymore. Lin Qinghuang quietly looked at her husband and asked him doubtfully what he meant. He calmly told her that if she succeeded, the Lin family, including her grandmother, would finally acknowledge her. It suddenly dawned on Lin Qinghuang that her husband might be crazy, but in a good way. Her thoughts returned to her grandmother. Did she really think she was worthless? Clenching her fists, she straightened up, let go of her husband's hand and, with her head held high, headed towards the festive table. Bending down in respect, she asked the old lady Lin for permission to personally discuss cooperation with Zhu's group. But Lin Chuan, who was sitting next to her, interrupted with a sneer. His face was twisted with disdain. He asked what gave her the right to think that she could talk to the CEO of such a large corporation. He warned her that leaving now would only bring shame, and he said it was not a matter of prejudice. He doubted that she knew anything about running a business. The thought of Lin Qinghuang gaining family recognition and professional success irritated him. The woman lowered her head, once again overcome with doubt. But at that moment, the grandmother suddenly calmly declared that she was ready to entrust the task to her. Lin Chuan suddenly jumped up from his seat. He loudly exclaimed that this was a mistake. He insisted that it was not a question of chances, but of how to take advantage of them. He reminded that even today, Lin Qinghuang had disgraced the family with her behavior and was unworthy of such trust. Old Lady Lin thought for a moment. A heavy silence fell over the room, but as soon as she tried to say something, Zhang Chuan immediately interrupted her. He declared that if Lin Qinghuang failed in the negotiations, he would give up all rights to the Lin family's inheritance. Lin Chuan, astonished by Zhang Chuan's audacity, was truly delighted. A thought immediately popped into his head. This was his chance to get closer to the inheritance. Here, He immediately turned to Lin Qinghuang and asked with a sly smile if she agreed to the conditions that her husband had just announced. Lin Chuang solemnly declares that if the negotiations fail, neither Lin Qinghuang nor her husband will have any further rights to the family property. Lin Zhongshuan accepts this condition calmly and asks his wife to agree. However, Huang, who is all nervous, tries to stop him, begging him not to talk nonsense in such a serious situation. Elderly Mrs. Lin confirms that since her husband supports the idea, she also advises doing everything possible to ensure success, but she immediately adds that she will not console her if the result is a failure. At this moment, Zhang Xuan's expression changed abruptly. He took a step forward towards the old lady, radiating cold determination. Lin Qinghuang squeezed his hand in fear, begging him to stop. He looks the old lady straight in the eye and says briefly, "We'll live and see." With these words, he takes his wife by the hand, and together they leave the banquet hall under the astonished gaze of the guests. The hall begins to whisper and laugh. Someone loudly says that King Wan is doomed because her husband is a real misunderstanding. They are sure that even if they crawl with a child to ask for an inheritance, there will be no mercy. Everyone present continues to laugh, as if on cue, although Miss Lin, looking after them, only sighs heavily. For a moment, even she is lost in her thoughts. Soon, an elderly man enters the room. He confidently walks towards Mrs. Lin and says with a smile that she has not changed at all. It turns out to be her older brother, a respected expert named Ji Yu Lao. But before she can ask what brings him here, he notices the bowl on the table, and his face lights up with surprise. Ji Yu Lao approaches the antique cup that Zhang Xuan had previously given him, and that the guests had ridiculed. He picks it up and, amazed, asks if it is really an original from the era of the ancient kings. Miss Lin answers calmly, "Perhaps he is mistaken. After all, this is a gift from an impudent son-in-law who cannot distinguish between good and evil." But Ji Yu Lao sharply objects, calling her words complete nonsense. He frowns, then looks closely at the bowl and confidently declares, "This artifact is a real relic, more valuable than many other things he has seen." The next day, Zhang Xuan strolls calmly through the market, picking up carrots on sale. His relaxed morning is interrupted by a visit from his secretary. She gets out of the car and tells him that Princess Anna from the ancient kingdom wants to meet him. She also tells him that she is heading to Yanzhou. Zhang Xuan doesn't pay much attention to this and says that he is already married. However, with a grin, he suggests to the secretary to see how far she can go. He then asks her to arrange negotiations between his wife and Zhu's group, emphasizing the importance of confidentiality and entrusting her to handle all the details. As he leaves, he warns her that they can't meet in public like this. It's all for safety and to keep the secret from the Lin family. He puts on a biker helmet and is about to leave, but his secretary stops him. The secretary says that it is not worth making such theatrical scenes for this woman. She looks at him reproachfully, as if hinting that he is too carried away by the game of nobility. Zhang Xuan calmly replies that the Lin family will still not understand his actions no matter how hard he tries. He exclaims with firmness that for him, Lin Qinghuang is his whole world, his universe. The secretary freezes for a moment, not knowing how to react to such an emotional statement, and Zhang Xuan himself gets on his motorcycle and rides away into the wind, thinking that for Huang, he is ready to do anything. And there is a deep meaning hidden in these words. After all, once upon a time, many years ago, Lin Qinghuang, at the age of 5, shared warm clothes with him and his mother, saving them from the harsh winter. And already at the age of 7, she helped him survive severe food poisoning, giving him money for treatment, without even asking for anything in return. At the age of 10, he entered the Lin family charity school, and his mother got a job there as a cleaner. And so life went on, hard, but stable. However, at the age of 14, fate struck inexorably. His mother was diagnosed with a malignant tumor, and in order not to be a burden to her son, she committed suicide by jumping from the roof. In her suicide note, she left only one request: to look after the Lin family as thanks for everything they had ever done. Since then, Zhang Xuan lived alone, but did not forget about his duty. Now, after learning that someone had given Lin Qinghuang a suspicious medicine, he began to cook a special medicinal soup for her, adding a healing agent to it every day. After pouring warm soup into bowls, he heads straight to her room. He knocks gently and announces that the soup is ready. A moment later, the door opens, and a tired Lin Qinghuang appears, with a heavy folder in her hands and dark circles under her eyes. She can barely stand on her feet, staggering and almost losing her balance. as she walks past him. Zhang Xuan immediately rushes to her side, catching her before she falls. He asks her to rest for a while before her important meeting at Zhu Hu's company, emphasizing the importance of not exhausting herself. But Lin Qinghuang quickly pulls away, saying that she is fine and not to worry. Zhang Xuan does not insist, but asks her to at least eat some soup and allows him to give her a ride. He wants her to arrive on time and not exhausted. This time she doesn't object. She takes the soup and starts eating. Within a few minutes, she feels a surge of strength and clarity of thought. Delighted, she asks Zhang Xuan to pack his things. She is ready to go to the negotiations. Soon, the two of them head to Zhu Group by bicycle, maintaining a light but focused atmosphere. On the way, Lin Qinghuang suddenly falls asleep, her head resting on his shoulder. Zhang Xuan watches her sleep silently, knowing how much effort she has put into the upcoming deal. He thinks about how all her sternness and cold determination disappears when she simply dozes next to him. At such moments, he realizes especially clearly how dear she is to his heart. Suddenly, Lin Qinghuang felt someone's gaze. She instantly wakes up and jumps off Zhang Xuan's shoulder, blushing slightly from the embarrassment of falling asleep on his shoulder. King Huang quickly gets off his bicycle and seriously asks Zhang Xuan to wait for her at the same place. He enthusiastically agrees, ready to wait for an eternity, believing in the success of her negotiations. They part in good spirits in front of the building, full of hope. However, half an hour later, Zhang Xuan notices King Huang leaving the building and sees her crying bitterly. He immediately runs up and asks what happened. Annoyed and furious, Lin Qinghuang throws a stack of documents in his face and accuses him of causing everything to go wrong because of his ridiculous promise to old lady Lin. She claims that no one else could have made such a mistake in their calculations. Sheets of documents fly around like autumn leaves. She quickly gets into the nearest taxi and leaves Zhu Group, leaving Zhang Xuan at a loss as to what exactly went wrong. Zhang Xuan calls his secretary and demands to urgently find out who and what made his wife so unhappy. The secretary immediately starts up the computer and discovers that Zhu Group's CEO, Zhu Hu, has been bullying Lin Qinghuang during negotiations, demanding that she come to a motel and spend the night with him. An angry Zhang Xuan hears about this and even breaks the phone in a fit of rage. He is determined that Zhu Hu had better prepare a coffin for him. He will need it soon. Meanwhile, Zhu Hu himself sits calmly on the roof of the building, sipping coffee and confidently declaring that Lin Qinghuang has no choice, because at stake is a billion-dollar project that his company cannot lose. He dreams that King Wan will soon come to him to beg for a deal. While he sits alone, he decides to go about his business. But suddenly, someone bursts through the door. Since the door was unlocked, Zhu Hu was taken by surprise and spilled hot coffee on his pants. He screams furiously in surprise. Irritated, he looks at the door and, his face red with anger, demands to know the name of the person who dared to enter the office so rudely. Zhang Xuan himself enters, angrily and decisively declaring that he is here to destroy Zhu Hu's group. The next one is the second. Zhang Xuan abruptly takes away both the coffee cup and the computer sitting on the table next to Zhu Hu. All the contents on the table fall to the floor with a crash. Zhu Hu himself flies back and hits his head on the wall of the office. Blood begins to flow from the wound. Stunned by such impudence, he puts his hand to his forehead, trying to stop the bleeding, and, looking angrily, asks if Zhang Xuan knows who is in front of him, making it clear that it is dangerous to touch him. However, the well-informed Zhang Xuan mockingly teases the director, asking him what he is muttering under his breath. He claims that he cannot hear him because of the noise, and furiously slams his fist on the table, which immediately shatters into pieces. Seeing this, Zhu Hu understands that the enemy is strong and dangerous. If he decides to strike, there will be no trace left of him. Realizing his situation, he humbly kneels down and, in a groveling manner, begs Zhang Xuan what he wants from him. With the most terrifying grimace on his face, Zhang Xuan declares that Director Zhu Hu has only two choices: either sign the contract with Lin Qinghuang or die right here, along with his company. Zhu Hu, not taking the threat seriously, stands up and states that perhaps he was sent by the Lin family. He asks if it will be okay if he just kills Zhang Xuan and leaves, wondering if the life and money the Lin family gave for the murder is worth such a price. Zhang Xuan warns that if the second option occurs, both he and the Zhu Group will perish. Not believing the words, Zhu Hu laughs and says that Zhang Xuan's fists are strong, but not strong enough to destroy an entire corporation. Without listening to the rest, Zhang Xuan picks up the phone and calls someone, pointing at Zhu Hu and ordering him to remain silent. He announces that if they don't call back within 50 seconds, Zhuhu Corporation will be razed to the ground. Then he hangs up. Report 52 begins. At the first stage, Zhuhu puts up a fierce resistance, claiming that Zhang Xuan is just showing off and trying to make a fool of himself. He kicks a chair and shouts back. The resistance lasts for 20 seconds. Then, continuing to argue, he threatens Zhang Xuan that he will kill him with his own hands if he waits any longer. There are only 5 seconds left until the end of the answer. Time is running out. Zhuhu looks at Zhang Xuan with a fierce and challenging expression, declaring that he now wants to see him destroy his corporation. Hearing the silence, he ironically asks where the threats went. Suddenly, his phone rings. When Zhuhu answers the phone, he receives bad news. The shares of Zhu Group companies have been bought out by a mysterious consortium, and the company is losing hundreds of millions of dollars every 2 months. Zhuhu was sweating profusely after hearing the latest news. His face showed growing anxiety. Things were getting worse. He was told that 3 partners wanted to end their partnership despite the losses. The company's servers had been subjected to a massive hacker attack, and the Zhu Group employees were helpless. There were calls from managers, and, finally, from the CEO's father. He picked up the second phone, and his father's furious scream rang out in his ears. He lashed out at his son, calling him stupid and useless. His father warned him that his friends were advising him to flee the country, since he had stood in the way of a powerful enemy. The realization of the company's downfall seriously shook the director. Filled with horror, Zhuhu pointed his finger at Zhang Xuan and blamed him for all the troubles. With an evil smile, Zhang Xuan reminded him that he had given him a choice of 2 options, the consequences of which he was now reaping. He asked again what answer he would give now. In despair, Zhuhu fell to his knees and vowed to fulfill Zhang Xuan's every wish, just so he could stay alive. Zhang Xuan demanded that Zhuhu meet Lin Qingwan the next day, apologize to her, and pay her a large compensation. The director, although angry, was forced to agree. The next day, a meeting of the Lin family was held at the Yingzhou Center, where Lin Chuan began to put pressure on Qing Huang again. He shouted loudly, claiming that they knew about the Zhu Group's refusal. In the midst of the accusations, the office door swung open, and a group of men in suits entered, the main representatives of the Zhu company. King Huang and the others present were confused. After the shameful refusal of the Zhu Group, the misunderstandings only multiplied. The silence was broken by the angry Lin Chuan, who immediately asked why they had come. Among those who came was Xinju's father, clearly in an irritated state. He became so angry that he began to beat his son right in front of everyone. Zhu had not yet recovered from his wounds from his previous encounter with Zhang Quan, but his father did not spare him and ordered him to kneel down and beg for forgiveness from King Huang. The father called his son a vile animal, and Zhu, writhing in pain, knelt down and with tears in his eyes handed over the contract, expressing sincere regret and calling himself a fool. He promised that after signing, the land in question would be entirely at Qing Huang's disposal. The man said he didn't want the land itself, but only hoped for future cooperation between the companies and for something like this not to happen again. He asked King Huang for forgiveness, knowing that his father might kill him otherwise. Zhu begged her to sign the contract. King Huang immediately realized that there was someone else behind all this. She wondered about the mysterious person behind this man. However, without jumping to conclusions, she decided to sign the contract first and then sort things out. She took the document and announced her acceptance. As an apology to Zhuhu, the man, still kneeling, immediately thanked Qing Huang. Zhuhu's father apologized for wasting her time and promised that they would not bother her again. Old Lady Ling, watching this, curiously asks Ling Chuan what exactly King Huang is apologizing for. She then chuckles and suggests that the king may have some tricks up his sleeve that they don't even know about. After these words, she officially announces that the Lin Group will receive sponsorship and that the negotiations conducted by King Huang have been successful. Approaching her granddaughter, she places her hand on her shoulder and happily notes that she kept her promise. Praising her granddaughter for her successful work, she adds that she will always be there if she needs help. King Huan, touched, thanks his grandmother. After the meeting ended, Old Lady Lin and Lin Chuan left the building together. Ling Chuan speculates that the Zheng family may have interfered with the Zhu family's affairs for the benefit of Qing Huang. He mentions that Chen Chu of the Zheng family has been in love with Qing Huang for many years, and that the entire Zheng family loves her. Xuan Riley remarks that perhaps the Zhu family should have noticed this earlier, but the elderly woman immediately moves away from this topic, reminding that Wan already has a husband. With a sly grin, Xuan declares that everything is simple. All that is needed is for her to divorce Zhang Chuan. The next day, King Huang comes to a fancy restaurant, not alone. Unexpectedly, she receives a call from her father, who, despite her marriage, offers her a blind date. Surprised but intrigued, she agrees. Zhang Chuan accompanies her and is already waiting at the entrance. She approaches him, takes his hand, and looks into his eyes with slight embarrassment. At this moment, King Huang realizes how well she knows Chen Chu's character and how much better her husband is in every way. Seeing her embarrassment, Zhang Chuan decides that she has become softer towards him and hugs her around the waist. Even more embarrassed, King Huan blushes and asks him to take his hands away. She sternly warns them not to say anything stupid inside and that they should be gentle with each other. Embarrassed, she adds that this is all just a rehearsal for their intimate relationship, nothing more. Embarrassed, Zhang Chuan immediately removes his hands and, with a slight smile, promises to perform the role task in front of the Chen family. They enter the restaurant and take the central table, where the Chen family representatives and Qing Huang's father have already gathered. Zhang Chuan and Qing Huang greet their father, but he does not even look at them, only noting that Qing Huang and Zheng Chu are the same age. She guesses what he is getting at, but does not show it. Then Zheng Chu starts talking, pointing at Zheng Chuan and asking with a grin if he is really her chosen one. He sarcastically remarks that she does.
I would be very happy if you subscribed to the channel, liked and wrote a comment, rating this manga on a scale from 1 to 10. Your opinion is very important to me. This will help me better understand what my audience is interested in, because you are really important to me.
Does not know what is best for her. Chen's mother, meanwhile, whispers to her husband that the young King Huang does not inspire confidence, and their son is 100 times better. King Huang firmly states that Zheng Chuan is her personal choice, and she is not interested in other men. Zhang Chuan, who is sitting next to her, looks at her with a mocking smile, showing no emotion. To prevent the argument from escalating, Huang's father calls the waiter and offers to place an order, postponing the discussion for later. The waiter comes with the menu. Wanting to embarrass Zhang Chuan, Zhang Chu takes the menu first and hands it to him, asking him to order whatever he wants, assuring him that he will pay the bill himself. Behind Zhang Chu's seemingly friendly gesture, there was a wicked plan. He knew that the menu was written in French, and he was sure that Zhang Chuan would not understand a word. In his mind, a picture of shame was already ripening with a mocking grin. But Zhang Chuan calmly takes the menu and confidently orders a baguette, foie gras, and a glass of red wine. Hearing this, Zheng Chu laughs loudly, reproaching him for his mispronunciation, insisting that it is called foie gras. He sarcastically remarks that he is only pretending to be an expert in French cuisine and does not know its subtleties at all. He also emphasizes that French etiquette strictly requires the order of serving dishes. When the dishes arrive, Zheng Qi, annoyed, chooses the fruit, continuing to mock. He claims that ordering appetizers before the main course is a gross violation, and that in France, such a thing would get a person thrown out of the restaurant. But Zhang Chuan continues to sit with an unperturbed smile. However, Lin Qing Huang cannot stand it, and harshly tells Zhang Qiu that he should not shout and humiliate her husband like that. Then Zhang Xuan himself decides to intervene in the conversation. He calmly explains that foie gras is duck liver, known as fatty liver, and the apricot, like other fruits, is an appetizer. He adds that traditionally, foie gras is eaten with a baguette, and that is perfectly acceptable. Zhang Qiu, offended, mockingly declares that such a combination is absurd. He adds that Zhang Xuan has a rich imagination for a poor and ignorant man. But those around him no longer listen to Zhang Qiu. Zhang Xuan calmly points to a nearby table where diners are eating exactly the same dish, just as he described. Zhang Qiu blushes with shame as he watches his neighbors enjoy eating that same foie gras with baguette and fruit. Zhang Xuan turns to him with a grin and asks, "Who looks stupid now?" Realizing that he has embarrassed himself, Zhang Qiu remains silent. Zhang Xuan continues calmly, explaining that French cuisine is not just a set of ingredients, but an art of understanding taste and culture. He takes a piece of baguette with foie gras, makes a sandwich and, bending slightly, brings it to Lin Qing Huang's mouth. She accepts the treat without hesitation. Already on the second bite, she feels how exquisite and balanced the taste is. Smiling, she says that the sandwich turned out divine. It is clear from her look. Her love for her husband has become even deeper. Seeing their mutual sympathy, Zhang Qiu is finally convinced that Zhang Xuan really understands culture, which only increases his inner rage. Zhang Xuan, adding fuel to the fire, says that everything he said is true, and that people who follow the rules without understanding the essence are in fact just hypocrites. Unable to bear the final shame, the entire Chen family gets up from the table and leaves, not hiding their irritation. And Zhang Xuan still calmly watches them go. Lin Qinghuang's father, not wanting to continue this farce, gets up and leaves with his family. Left alone, Zhang Xuan and Lin Qinghuang start laughing. She asks with a slight smile if he did it on purpose. He replies that perhaps it wasn't all a coincidence, but it was a great performance. When she asks how he knows such details, he admits that he used to work as a waiter in a restaurant and remembers her mentioning it casually once. After a pause, Lin Qinghuang asks her husband with interest why he has not yet worked for her company. In her opinion, his abilities would be very useful there, and he could establish relationships with key partners. However, Zhang Xuan immediately and gently declines the offer, saying that his main mission is to be a good husband and stay at home. Deep down, he believes that cooking soup is better than going to the office. Besides, if he ever needs money, he knows that a couple of calls are enough. But he fails to convince his wife of the correctness of his approach. She begins to get angry. King Huang is irritated and says that a grown man cannot sit idle and that he will not achieve anything in life if he stays at home. Under pressure, Zhang Xuan finally agrees to try his hand at work. The very next day, he gets a job at a small company where he is given a salary of $2,000 a month. In the morning, while sitting in a cafe not far from the office, he suddenly notices a red-haired girl approaching him and asking a provocative question right from the doorway. Is he that same Zhang Xuan that everyone talks about as trash? A little taken aback by such impudence, he slowly looks up and meets her eyes. The girl, not hiding her contempt, says that one look at him and it immediately becomes clear that he is a non-entity. She is sure he is not worthy of King Huang. It turns out that this is her friend Fang Yi. According to her, the sight of Zhang has put her off her appetite. Unable to bear it, the man gets up from the table and calmly declares that he doesn't care what she says. For now, she's just a friend, and he's the husband of King Huang. He takes a step to leave, but the girl shouts after him not to delude himself. She says that if necessary, she will repeat everything to his face and even throw him out of the establishment. According to her, King Huang is losing his reputation because of his communication with him. These words are too much for her. Zhang Xuan stops, turns around with an icy gaze, and demands that she stop insulting him and his wife. He starts to approach, and Feng Yi, despite her brash nature, starts to back away. At that moment, a manager named Hu Kang approaches them and demands an explanation. Zhang Xuan silently grabs his shoulder and pushes him aside. The manager barely maintains his balance before turning to the girl, asking if she is okay, and warning her that if Zhang Xuan touches her again. Feng Yi plays along, declaring that newbies like him need to be trained in how to properly communicate with customers. The girl leaves the cafe in anger, accompanied by the manager, who suddenly recognizes Zhang as the very man they are whispering about in the corridors. He whispers to Feng Yi that this is the same insignificant son-in-law who recently appeared in the Lin family, and assures him that he will definitely deal with him. A dark shadow appears on Zhang's face. This is not the first time he has heard such words. As soon as the girl disappears from sight, Hu Kang hands him his first task. He says that he does not tolerate idlers, and demands that Zhang Xuan bring a debt from a certain Shanlong by evening. The manager hands him a notebook with the data and sends him on his way. However, Zhang Xuan calmly asks where he can get the address and the company travel pass that he is entitled to according to the rules. In response, Hu Kang explodes. He yells that the newcomer already on the first day dares to be impudent and demand too much, showing everyone his arrogant nature. Zhang Xuan slowly sits down on the edge of the table right in front of Hu Kang and, looking him in the face, declares that in that case, he will not go anywhere. The angry manager furiously asks him again if he really refuses to go to Shanglong. Zhang Xuan calmly asks him to leave him alone and picks up the phone, which irritates the boss even more. He dials the secretary's number and calmly says that he is currently in the company of his wife. Then he asks to immediately send people to Shanlong to return the money that belongs to them. After hanging up, he leans back. At this moment, the entire cafe comes alive. People come closer with interest. Hu Kang, overhearing the conversation, barely restrains himself and irritably demands an explanation. Who is he to give such orders? Zhang Xuan only suggests that he sit down and wait a little. The manager loses his temper. He exclaims that he will lose face if Shanlong does not send money. He calls Zhang Xuan an idiot, convinced that if it were that simple, the money would have been sorted out long ago. A crowd gathers around and begins to discuss the dispute. A guard comes up and quietly tells Hu Kang that Zhang Xuan is not simple. He is connected to one of the most influential families, with whom it is better not to quarrel. Meanwhile, Zhang Xuan begins counting down 3, 2, 1. And as he says the last number, people appear at the door. At first glance, they are classic mafiosi. Strict suits, heavy looks, silent determination. Their appearance paralyzes the crowd. Even Hu Kang takes a step back, not knowing what to do. Everyone starts making excuses. One of the employees backs away. One of the men adjusts his glasses and, looking around the room, asks where Zhang Xuan is. When he is pointed to a man sitting quietly by the window, he immediately heads towards him. Hu Kang's face shows a wicked grin. He is sure that Zhang Xuan will be taught a lesson now, and he will finally see him disgrace the Lin family's name. The man suddenly approaches Zhang and demands an answer. Was it he who ordered the money to be taken from Shanlong? Still calmly, Zhang Xuan confirms and clarifies whether there is any problem with this. Hearing this, the mafioso turns to his men and loudly announces, Zhang Xuan himself is in front of them. Hu Kang is already looking forward to the spectacle. He sees the grins on the faces of the mafiosi and is sure that Zhang will get what he deserves. But things go wrong. Shanlong's people suddenly fall to their knees. One by one, 30 of them, they scream for forgiveness, saying they just want to live. Hu Kang is in complete shock, unable to comprehend what is happening. The gang leader hands Zhang a check with tears in his eyes and says with a trembling voice that it contains 100 million. He even offers to count it, every penny. Zhang Xuan silently takes the check and calmly hands it to Hu Kang, informing him that his workday is over for today. Holding the check with trembling hands, Hu Kang notices that the amount not only covers the debt, but is double it. One of those who had been kneeling a moment ago asked Zhang Xuan with a gentle smile to let them go. Zhang Xuan nodded and calmly replied that they were free. Having heard the permission, the entire crowd of mafiosi immediately rushed to the exit, pushing everyone in their path, just to leave the premises as quickly as possible. Zhang Xuan followed them out slowly. Hu Kang was left standing in the middle of the room, hurt. His pride had been damaged. He thought that this guy had caused chaos on his first day at work. In his rage, he decided that Zhang Xuan would no longer work for his company. One of the employees, without waiting for instructions, orders everyone to keep quiet about what happened. He solemnly promises to close Shanlong's account himself and forget about everything. Meanwhile, Zhang Xuan returns to the office, sits down at his desk, and waits for the workday to end with an indifferent expression. Soon, he is informed that he is fired. He receives 1 day's pay and is asked to leave. Zhang Xuan calmly replies that he doesn't care about being fired, but he wonders how they will explain this decision to management. The employee coldly remarks that the boss himself can't stand him, so the firing will go without consequences. Without saying a word, Zhang Xuan packs his things. As he leaves, he thinks that despite the company's small size, there is not a single person in it that he can trust. In the evening, he is walking home. At that moment, a car passes by and his attention is drawn to a familiar face behind the glass. It was the same girl, Fanny, who had insulted him in the morning. However, now she looked extremely pale and exhausted, and the man next to her aroused suspicion. He understands that the girl is acquainted with King Wan, and if something happens to her, the king will be in despair. Without thinking, he rushes after the car, knocking down several passers-by along the way. The car's trail leads him to a luxurious mansion, where he enters without wasting a second. Inside, one of the men lays Fanny down on the bed and turns around to ask his friend if everything is ready for filming. He answers affirmatively, saying that the camera is the best one could get. He boasts that the video will be excellent. From Fanny's condition, it becomes clear that she was given something powerful, something that suppresses her will. The kidnapper's name is Chen Jun. He is unhappy with the delay and says he can't wait any longer. But at that moment, the door burst open with a bang, and Zhang Xuan's foot slammed right into Chen Jun's face, knocking him down. Seeing Zhang Xuan's face approaching, Chen Jun immediately turns to pleading. He babbles that they just wanted to make a deal with the girl. Without listening to him to the end, Zhang Xuan angrily hits him on the neck and rudely calls him a vile bastard. After making sure that both bastards are neutralized, he takes off his jacket and carefully covers the exhausted Fanny with it. When he reaches out his hand, the girl suddenly hugs him. In a weak voice, she says that she is hot and that only he can save her. Zhang Xuan freezes, not knowing how to react to this gesture. After a moment, he carefully moves her face away from his, trying to keep his cool. Looking at the girl, Zhang Xuan sighs and admits to himself that he doesn't even know where she lives. He decides that the safest choice is to take her to the Lin family mansion, Lin Qinghuang's home. About 20 minutes later, he is already standing at the door of the family mansion. He carefully lays the girl down on the bed. The thought flashes through his mind that it's a good thing he managed to get through the window. There are too many people downstairs, and Fan Yi's appearance next to him would cause a scandal. He decides that he must tell his wife about everything as soon as possible. Meanwhile, Fan Yi opens his eyes, still not realizing where he is. Downstairs, in the luxurious living room of the villa, a heated discussion is taking place about Lin Qinghuang's love life. The entire Lin family is gathered, each eager to voice their opinion. Her aunt loudly declares that everything is obvious. Qinghuang should divorce Zhang Xuan and marry Zhang Qiu. Lin Qinghuang is shocked. She does not understand how her aunt can say such things. She, without blinking an eye, declares that Zheng Quan is no longer the same, he has changed, and is now ready for serious life. Lin Chuan, sitting next to her, bursts out laughing and mockingly asks if her tastes have become so poor that she would choose a simpleton like Zhang Xuan. He adds that he might as well go begging. Auntie reprimands Lin Chuan, saying that he is going too far. However, she immediately adds that there is a grain of truth in his words. Lin Qinghuang is angry. The conviction grows inside her that her husband is not at all what the rest of the family sees him as. He is different. She is about to speak out, but suddenly old Mrs. Lin enters the room, interrupting the whole argument. With a bored wave of her hand, she asks her granddaughter to just tell the truth. She says that there are benefits in cooperating with the Zhang family. But the main question is, does she love Zhang Xuan? Lin Qinghuang thought about to answer, but at that moment she was interrupted by a loud voice from above. A shriek comes from the stairs. A girl calls Zhang Xuan a monster. Everyone falls silent and turns around in surprise. Fang Yi appears, her red dress torn, her face tear-stained. She looks at Zhang accusingly and, without waiting for a reaction, runs to Lin Qinghuang. Zhang Xuan is dumbfounded. He did not expect such a turn of events and rushes after her to stop the lie. Lin Qinghuang anxiously asks what happened. Fang Yi sobs and says that she fainted in the garage and woke up to find Zhang Xuan hovering over her. At this moment, Zhang Xuan appears at the door of the hall. The gaze of the entire family turns to him, full of bewilderment and condemnation. Old Lady Lin turns to Fan Yi and asks if she is telling the truth. Fan Yi, without blinking, replies that she would not lie about such serious matters. Lin Qinghuang is furious. In a blind fit of emotion, she slaps Zhang, calling him an animal. Shocked, Zhang Xuan looks at his wife and asks with pain in his voice if she really doesn't believe him. Lin Chuan doesn't miss the opportunity to shout that Zhang Xuan has completely disgraced their family. Lin Chuan angrily swings his sword at Zhang Xuan, shouting that he will definitely finish him off this time. But Zhang Xuan is not going to tolerate insults. He immediately responds with a blow. Lin Chuan falls to the floor with a dull groan. Finding himself on the floor, he squeals in humiliation, asking how Zhang Xuan dared to push him in front of the entire family. Elderly Mrs. Lin cannot stand what is happening and demands that Zhang Xuan be taken out of the house immediately. Zhang Xuan turns his gaze to Lin Qinghuang. He sees no trust in her eyes, even after everything they have been through. This hurts him deeply. Having made his decision, he turns to her and calmly tells her that if she does not believe him, there is no point in staying in this family. Holding back his emotions, he turns around and leaves the lower hall of the villa, leaving behind distrust and condemnation. Lin Qinghuang watches him go with sadness. Lin Chuan, rising from the floor, shouts after him that he deserved it. He hatefully declares that he always knew that Zhang Xuan was not a man to be trusted. He reminds him that the Lin family took him in, and he repaid them with shame. Lin Qinghuang walks up to Fang Yi, hugs her, and tells her that she will definitely find out who did this. She promises that if it turns out that her husband is guilty, she will file for divorce without hesitation. But Fang Yi, in tears, yells at her friend. She demands an explanation. Did she not see that everything happened before her eyes? Why does she doubt and continue to defend Zhang Xuan? Lin Qinghuang froze, her mind in confusion, not knowing what to say to calm her friend down. At this tense moment, a man runs into the house and starts looking for Lin Qinghuang. It is Xiao Li, Fang Yi's employee. He runs up and tells her and Fan Yi that he has received the video camera, the same one that Zhang Xuan gave him. Later, at the villa, he asks both girls, Lin Qinghuang and Fang Yi, to watch the video. He explains that the recording was found in Cheng Jun's mansion. When they open the tape, they see Cheng Jun, with a nasty grin, asking the cameraman to film him and his victim as clearly as possible, and then says that he will personally review the footage. Lin Qinghuang and Feng Yi freeze in horror at what they see. The truth turns out to be much more terrible than fiction. The next shot shows Zhang Xuan beating up Cheng Jun despite his pleas for mercy. The video footage clearly shows Zhang Xuan, having won, taking off his jacket and covering the unconscious Feng Yi with it, carefully carrying her out of the mansion. Shocked, Lin Qinghuang is almost torn apart by shame for her distrust. Tears well up in her eyes, and her heart is constricted by guilt. Without hesitation, she jumps up from her seat and runs towards the exit. There is only one thought in her head. She did not even try to find out the truth from him. Tears roll down her cheeks. Running out of the villa, she continues to cry, realizing how deeply mistaken she was. And right at the exit, she runs into Zhang Xuan, standing alone and sadly, as if he was waiting for her. A little out of breath from running, Lin Qinghuang finally catches up with her husband and calls out his name. He turns around and sees her. She can hardly hold back her tears and says that now she knows the whole truth about what happened. She asks him not to leave. Zhang Xuan covers her face with her hand and quietly asks how she plans to compensate him for the pain of that slap. Coming closer, Lin Qinghuang smiles through her tears and promises to pay for all his medical expenses. She adds that she is willing to do whatever he wants for him. Zhang Xuan is embarrassed, blushes, but of course forgives her. The next day, Zhang Xuan goes to the market to buy fresh vegetables and groceries for home. At this moment, his secretary calls him and tells him that a hunt has been declared for Lin Qinghuang. Without wasting a minute, he heads to the building where his wife works. Seeing her husband from afar, Lin Qinghuang wonders why he is in such a place. Zhang Xuan, looking like a complete bankrupt, approaches her and says that he has no job and therefore no money. He asks her for only 500 yuan for expenses. He notices a strange woman standing next to her. From her clothes and posture, he guesses that she is most likely her new bodyguard. He concludes that the Lin family is already aware of the impending threat. Lin Qinghuang is thinking about something else at this point. She remembers how she helped him with his work. She regretfully realizes that he quit the very next day. She begins to be tormented by the thought that the promise to do everything for him was too hasty. She takes the money out of her pocket and hands it to him. At the same time, she tells him not to come to her company dressed like that. Zhang Xuan thanks her and asks if she is going home. He asks her to give him a ride, but she immediately refuses, citing the lack of space in the car. Then a woman standing nearby offers to give them both a ride in her car. Zhang Xuan is happy, but Lin Qinghuang is irritated. On the way, Zhang Xuan politely thanks the woman and asks if she is a new employee at his wife's company. He is curious as to why he has not seen her before. The woman begins to get irritated by his chatter, but for now she silently endures it, hoping that the trip will end soon. Suddenly, the car brakes sharply. Zhang Xuan is almost thrown through the windshield, and Lin Qinghuang immediately demands an explanation. Looking up, the three of them see that the road is blocked by a large truck. Lin Qinghuang is surprised. The villa is very close. Why is there a barrier here? The bodyguard suspects something is wrong. She unbuckles her seatbelt and tells Lin Qinghuang to stay in the car. Her voice sounds worried. The woman gets out of the car. At the same moment, a whole group of men get out of the truck. Their appearance leaves no doubt these are real bandits. One of them orders the woman to step aside, shouting that they need the girl sitting in the car. Each of them has knives in their hands. The bodyguard, with cold determination, tells the attackers that she will not allow anyone to dare to kidnap King Wan. One of the bandits, brandishing a knife, approaches her, shouting that she herself is to blame for the rudeness that is about to follow. But his lunge misses the target. The bodyguard deftly dodges the blow. The next moment, she grabs his hand and throws the attacker with all her might onto the roof of the car, right next to the window where Lin Qinghuang is sitting. Seeing this, she covers her face with her hand in horror. The bodyguard quickly turns around to shout at Zhang Xuan to call the police, but when she turns her head, she notices that he is not there. Surprised, she wonders where her husband could have gone at a time when they were in mortal danger. Meanwhile, Zhang Xuan quietly leaves the scene of the conflict and enters their family villa. Opening the door, he enters a spacious hall and, without wasting time, demands an explanation from the mysterious stranger, who he is and why he made all this noise. He orders to show his face. A figure in black slowly descends from the second-floor stairs. A long coat, a black hat, gloves. Like a ghost, he says that Zhang Xuan has managed to figure him out after all. He admits that he has good observation skills. Zhang Xuan angrily asks how this man dared to invade his house and make a mess. He adds with irritation that the intruder has soiled the floor he had just washed. In a rage, he exclaims that he managed to splatter everything while getting inside. The stranger smirks and says that Zhang Xuan must really have a family he cares about, even if he worries about cleanliness before he dies. He then takes out a cigarette and lights it. Zhang Xuan immediately orders the cigarette to be put out, explaining that his wife cannot stand tobacco smoke. The stranger asks defiantly what will happen if he refuses. Zhang Xuan frowned and replied threateningly, if he didn't put out the cigarette, he would die right in his arms. This angers the enemy, and he is the first to rush at Zhang with his fist, shouting a threat, "Just try to die!" But Zhang Xuan reacts instantly. He grabs the attacker's arm and easily breaks it. The man falls to his knees with a scream, overcome with shock and pain. At this point, Zhang Xuan notices a tattoo on his neck. He immediately jumps to a conclusion and asks if he is part of the Dark Knight, a legendary group of 30 mercenaries. There is no answer. Then Zhang Xuan asks the next question, who hired him? The man calmly replies that since Zhang Xuan knows about the Dark Knight, he must understand that even if they die, they will not reveal the identity of their employer. Then Zhang Xuan goes to extremes. He takes a gold ring with an emblem out of his pocket and holds it out. He asks if he knows what this symbol is. The man instantly recognizes it and says in shock that this ring is sacred. The man immediately recognizes Zhang Xuan himself. Zhang Xuan repeats his question. If he does not name his employer, he will hunt down and destroy all 12 of his brothers and sisters. Without hesitation, the man answers. The order came from a person named Su He. He also adds that he serves a person named Yan Shi. As soon as he says this, his head gets hit. He suffocates, loses consciousness, and dies on the spot. Meanwhile, Lin Qinghuang and her bodyguard, having dealt with the bandits, finally reach the villa. They burst into the house with stern expressions on their faces, catching Zhang Xuan cleaning up the aftermath of the collision. Zhang Xuan greets them with an unexpectedly joyful smile. Approaching his wife, he offers her to relax a little, calling himself her personal admirer and promising to provide her with the rest she deserves. Lin Qinghuang sat down on a chair, put her palm to her forehead, and thought that she had truly believed in her husband's change before, but she didn't expect that he would run away like a coward while her life was in danger. She sighs heavily. At this moment, Zhang Xuan comes up with a basin of water and with a gentle smile says that she is very tired and asks permission to wash her feet. Irritated, Lin Qinghuang asks what the hell he is doing. Without answering, he carefully removes her slippers. Then he gently lowers her feet into the warm water. There are still traces of poison circulating in her body, and only 6 healing massages will help to completely cleanse her system. He decides that he will do this regularly, and begins the procedure. Blushing, Lin Qinghuang asks him not to touch her feet, because there is a stranger in the house. He, assuring her of his decency, declares that he simply cares about her, and does not intend to do anything unacceptable. He takes her leg and says that she is stressed after the attack, and that a massage will help her calm down. She blushes even more under his touch, but does not resist. Lin Qinghuang, blushing deeply, continues to sit silently. During the massage, she recalls how, in recent days, for the first time in a long time, she began to sleep peacefully and without nightmares. She assumes that it is all because of the promise Zhang Xuan once made to her. Her heart begins to beat faster, and she begins to admire the care with which he massages her feet. A few minutes later, she admits that she feels much better. Then she says that an old friend is coming to visit her, and asks her husband to leave the house for a while, so that she can rest a little. Zhang Xuan stands up, takes a basin of water, and with the same calm smile, asks who exactly her friend is. Lin Qinghuang waves his hand irritably, and coldly orders him to leave, and not to return until noon. He doesn't take offense. He playfully asks what will happen if he comes back early. This irritates her even more. She throws a pillow at him and tells him to get out. He just smiles and, chuckling, goes out to pour out the water. Once on the street, Zhang Xuan heads to the charity founded by Lin Qinghuang. The sight of the familiar building brings back memories. He and his mother were once homeless. Only thanks to a girl named Ding, they survived the hard times. He decides that since his wife wants to have fun with her friends, he will spend time with those who really need it, orphans. Along the way, he buys some toys and heads to the orphanage. As soon as Zhang Xuan's figure appears on the horizon, A crowd of children rushes towards him with joyful cries. He smiles and asks them not to rush, assuring them that there are enough toys for everyone. The little ones take a couple of toys from his hands and immediately return to their merry games. Watching this scene, Zhang Xuan immerses himself in memories with a serene smile. He recalls how, as a child, he was also happy with every new gift brought to the orphanage, be it a toy or sweets. A little girl runs up to him and, grabbing him by the hem of his t-shirt, asks him to play with her for a bit with a smile on her face. Her name is Yin Yin. She, like him once, is an orphan. Zhang Xuan happily agrees and picks her up. He spins her around, pretending to fly, causing the girl to laugh non-stop. For her, this is real magic. While they are playing, a motorcade of black Mercedes pulls up to the entrance of the shelter. People in expensive suits and stony faces get out of the cars. In the center is a woman in business attire, obviously the head of the delegation. She is accompanied by 2 bodyguards. Without wasting any time, they go inside. Seeing the strangers, Yin Yin's expression changes abruptly. In a serious voice, she says that these are bad people. According to her, they are the ones who want to destroy the shelter where she lives. Zhang Xuan carefully places her on the ground and, looking towards the guests, asks if they really want to demolish the orphanage. The girl nods affirmatively. Without wasting a second, he runs into the garden to those who rule this place. He calls a woman named Ding Qi and asks anxiously if everything is okay with the shelter. To calm him down, Ding Qi says she will try to resolve the situation. Next to her in the gazebo sits her old friend, Ken Ru. Ding Qi explains that the resort company bought the land where the shelter is located. The officials demanded that they first build a new charity house before starting construction work. With tears in her eyes, she adds that the new area is next to a chemical plant. She cannot allow the children to live in such conditions. She asks Zhang Xuan, "How can you leave orphans in such danger?" She then reminds him of the mysterious benefactor who has been supporting the orphanage all this time. Zhang Xuan says he's always wondered who it is. Ding Qi then replies, "That person is Ken Ru. She has been donating large sums of money for the past 5 years. But in this situation, even she is powerless." Despite this, Ken Ru is determined to fight to the end. Zhang Xuan jumps up and says that if no one else can, he will handle it himself. Ding Qi asks him not to interfere, but he insists. He convinces her that he can't just stand by when it comes to children who are like him in the past. Meanwhile, Ken Ru begins negotiations. One of the bodyguards tells her that the lives of these children are of no value to their clients, and that no one will spare them. He accuses the orphans of being born into the wrong families. Enraged, Ken Ru calls him and his employers bastards, and says that there will be retribution for such words. They answer that in a couple of days, they will complete the paperwork, and the shelter will be officially demolished. At this moment, Zhang Xuan appears with a stick in his hand. He firmly declares that no one will demolish the shelter. He threateningly demands that they leave this place immediately, otherwise he himself will drive them out by force. He approaches them, waving his stick. They lose their composure, hide behind each other, and begin to retreat. In a panic, the rich rush to their cars. One of them, at the end, shouts that they will still achieve the demolition of the shelter. The motorcade takes off and leaves noisily. Putting down his stick, Zhang Xuan walks up to Ken Ru and asks her worriedly if she is okay. She, still stunned, looks at him silently with wide eyes. A red-haired girl with pigtails joyfully throws her fists into the air as she jumps, her face lit up with delight. She is wearing a pink dress with a white collar, her eyes are closed, her mouth is open in an expression of triumph. The moment is filled with a sense of victory or celebration. In front of a fenced area with trees and a building, 2 people discuss the situation. The woman notes that, as long as the resort project is alive, sooner or later everything will happen again. Her voice sounds worried about the future. The dark-haired man confidently approaches a woman named Miss Shin, claiming he has a simple way to solve the problem. The copper-haired woman reacts with surprise when he suggests taking away land rights from others. A dark-haired man with long hair pulled back into a bun raises his fingers in a demonstrative peace gesture. He repeats the refusal 3 times, accompanying the words with a slight smile, clearly expressing his disagreement. The figure points with strength and determination at a high green mountain under a clear sky. The man demands that the mountain be razed to the ground. The close-up emphasizes the finger pointing beyond the reddish wall to the mountain range. A woman with long, fiery hair stares ahead with wide eyes and a bead of sweat on her face. She is wearing a dark pink top with black straps and asks in amazement if anything can destroy this mountain. The girl with pink hair asks Chef Michelle if everything is ready. Her fingers clasped together impatiently. Her face lights up with a smile, and the background glows with soft sparkles, emphasizing the anticipation. A blonde woman in a scarlet apron stirs a dish on the stove, calling Qingjun Ice President and asking questions about her cooking. He takes her words with annoyance, sensing the hidden irony. The man opens the door with a big smile and loudly announces his return, holding a bowl of food. The warm atmosphere of the room and his cheerful appearance create a homey atmosphere. The pink-haired girl turns around sharply, screaming in fear. Beads of sweat glisten on her face. The blonde stands with her back to the kitchen counter. The kitchen interior with wooden cabinets and a green countertop completes the scene. The pink-haired woman is rushing around the floor in panic, worried about the man who has returned. He asks what is going on. She is worried that the truth about her deception is about to come out. The pink-haired woman grabs the man's collar tightly, her gaze serious. She reminds him that she told her friend that he was an artist and demands that he not forget this image. A blonde in a red apron asks those present who Zhang Xuan is, holding a piece of cake in her hands and looking at the crowd with interest. A man with his hair up compliments a woman with pink locks in French, calling her beautiful. He is wearing a white shirt with an owl on it, and she listens with a slight smile against a pink textured pattern in the background. A girl in a scarlet dress, holding a plate, talks to a man named Mr. Zhang, praising his manners. Two others stand nearby, one with pink hair, the other with dark hair. The scene unfolds on a tiled floor near the stairs. Michelle confidently declares that she is Qingjun's best friend, her silhouette standing out against the glowing pink light. The woman invites everyone to the table where the dishes have already been served. She sits with a warm smile, encouraging others to join in the meal. The blonde asks Mr. Zhang if he met anyone at the exhibition, meaning Qingjun. He is sitting next to the pink-haired woman holding a drink. She confirms that she heard about it from a third party. A woman with long blonde hair sits confidently in a chair in a sleeveless, low-cut dress. She is talking about the clever trick that got President Iceberg to marry her. Her posture emphasizes her determination. A man with chopsticks smiles gently as he stands next to a woman. She squeezes his hand and tells him to ignore someone with conviction. Zhang Xuan nods in agreement. A blonde in a white sleeveless top demands the truth, asking tough questions. Her voice is full of determination. The scene is filled with tension. The pink-haired woman, astonished, denies what was said and tries to explain herself, claiming that they were both dating. The scene conveys a tense moment of argument and clarification. A young man, holding chopsticks, discusses a painting called Early Breakfast with a woman. They recall disagreements about its perception. The surroundings are cozy and richly decorated. The man with dark hair smiles softly as he addresses the woman. He says he was moved by the expression of emotion in the painting, contrasting it with the calm. The woman listens attentively to his words. One of the characters comments with a hint of envy on the romantic atmosphere between Qingjun and the other person. The scene emphasizes the orange eye and blonde hair, creating an effect of intimacy. A blonde woman in a blue dress exclaims that she forgot to bake snails, holding her face. In a room with an elegant interior, two people are sitting at a table, one with long pink hair, the other with short dark hair. The food has already been served. A woman with pink hair asks her blonde interlocutor how she learned about the painting. The latter stands by a large window, adjusting her dress, and asks a counter question in response. A man with dark hair and a bun, holding a phone, smiles and assures the woman that he has nothing to hide. He checked everything on the internet. She looks at him with irritation and skepticism. A blonde with wavy hair holds a phone to her ear and partially covers her mouth with her hand. The scene takes place in a richly decorated room with several chairs and a patterned wall. A woman with long blonde hair, talking on the phone, insistently reports that the man who left the country has now returned safely. The main emphasis is on the successful return of the fugitive. A young man with long dark hair, pulled back into a loose bun, stands against a backdrop of flickering lights. He smiles slightly as he talks about a man who used the artist's image to trick his best friend into marrying him. The subtext is the exposure of lies through someone else's identity. A woman with blonde hair and a blue top serves a dish to two people, calling them by name and expressing confidence that they will like it. The scene is cozy and homely. The atmosphere is friendly. A woman in a blue dress leans forward with a determined look, ready to expose the liar. Next to her, a man in dark clothes calmly smokes by the window. She declares that she will protect Xinghan from being deceived. The contrast between their moods emphasizes the tension. The woman wrapped in a blue towel apologetically asks Qinghan if she can stay for a few more days. Qinghan and the pink-haired woman sitting at the table react differently. Qinghan extends her hand. The pink-haired woman asks in surprise. One character assures the other that he can stay. The other is internally worried. If the truth about Zhang Xuan comes out, it will be awkward. Hospitality is offered, despite the potential conflict. A woman with long pink hair stares at a screen showing an interview with a smiling woman in a pink dress and hat. The background is a rocky landscape. A man off-screen is delighted by her idea to blow up a mountain. The scene emphasizes eccentric boldness. The pink-haired woman says that the professionals support Xinrao's decisions. Her tone is confident, with a hint of pride. A woman in a pink apron holds a bowl and, looking up sheepishly, admits that her wife praises her too much. The interior is a warm living room with a sofa and pillows, a scene of coziness and slight embarrassment. A young man in a pink apron explains how to make the movement smoother. He also mentions sanctions for the bombing. His posture is relaxed, he holds a bowl, his tone is calm. A woman with pink hair explains to a man sitting opposite her that the Hongzhou Trading Resort project has no official backing. The man protests emotionally, accusing her of not understanding the issue. A man in a pink apron, holding a woman's hand in a reserved manner, talks about the takeover of the industry by the Hengyuan Group, led by Qin Rao. His words are an alarming warning, but he supports his interlocutor. A young woman with pink hair sits in a room and talks about a man named Zhang Xuan who uses acupressure to treat a hidden illness. The scene has educational and caring undertones. Two women on a sofa discuss Zhang Xuan. One complains of pain in her shoulders and wants him to give her a massage. The other doubts his ability. The scene combines the mundane and the comic. One of the women asks her husband to help her massage Michelle. The husband smiles and calmly agrees. The intonation is light, in a supportive tone. A woman sits relaxed with her eyes closed while her shoulders are massaged. Warm light surrounds them. The text threatens to expose her despite the outward calm. Close-up of a woman's face with her eyes closed, lips parted, cheeks slightly flushed. Lighting effects create a sense of comfort and intimacy. She says that she is very pleased. A woman with blonde hair covers her mouth in shock. There is a hand on her shoulder. She exclaims sharply. The scene conveys surprise and suddenness. She blushes as the pain in her shoulder fades. The hand gently presses on the right spot. She is shocked by the effectiveness and asks how it is possible. Two women are chatting in a cozy room. The blonde suggests going to bed, but the pink-haired one enthusiastically invites her for a massage from Zhang Xuan. They agree on an evening of rest. The woman with red lips lies down with her hands above her head. She whispers that now that Qingjun is gone, it is time for the revelation. The atmosphere is conspiratorial. She throws her head back, one hand on her neck, and speaks softly, as if in awe of Zhang Xuan's touch. The background is soft, almost romantic. A woman with a fiery aura complains loudly, while a man calmly massages her shoulders. Notes float around, symbolizing a sharp emotional outburst against the background of complete calm of the interlocutor. The woman with the cigarette looks away in confusion as the other woman walks away, slamming the door. There are question marks around her head. She doesn't understand what has caused her friend's anger. In a park, two men in traditional costumes practice Tai Chi movements. A woman walks in the distance. The atmosphere is calm, concentrated. Green trees and benches complete the scene. An elderly man in a wheelchair offers a young man to try Tai Chi movements. They are outdoors, surrounded by nature. The veteran passes on knowledge. The young man asks in surprise why the old man is sitting in a chair if he can walk. In response, the older man says mysteriously, "Then you will see more." A scene about imaginary limitations. The dark-haired man touches his chin thoughtfully. He admits that he has a bad heart and suffers every day. Urgent help is needed. An emotionally charged moment. An old man with white hair and beard sits in the sun. He remembers how an old friend told him that only one person could recognize his illness. He asks if this is the person in front of him. A young man in a casual t-shirt with a picture of a bird says he is a leading doctor in China. He emphasizes his reputation and genius. Smiling warmly, he suggests discussing the illness next time. The elderly interlocutor replies that for such illnesses, money does not matter. Only fate is important. The final scene emphasizes the philosophical depth. An elderly man with long, white hair sits in a wheelchair on an alley surrounded by green bushes and slender trees. The bright sky and a lamppost create a calm atmosphere. Two figures move in the distance. The old man says thoughtfully that he notices freshness and youth in Aida. A gray-haired old man with a long beard confidently declares that his descendants are lagging behind someone else. Suddenly, a voice is heard. A young man is amazed and says with respect that the grandfather is still here. The scene is permeated with the difference in generations. A woman with long pink hair in a revealing outfit stands behind an elderly bald man with a white beard. She reproaches him for making his family worry. He, looking calmly ahead, says that he just went out to admire nature. There is a hidden conflict between them. The older man wonders when Qingjun's husband will finally be introduced to him. He leans forward, showing keen interest and eagerness to meet his son-in-law. The woman in the yellow jacket, with long pink hair, expresses doubts about Zhang Xuan's ability to provide for himself. She worries about the prospect of meeting her grandfather. The tension within her reflects her duality. Against a backdrop of trees and blue sky, a figure in a wheelchair moves along a paved path. One person urges the grandfather not to bring up the subject now, while another reminds him of an important family gathering. The scene suggests haste and underlying tension. A young man with his hair pulled back into a bun stands against a wall, hands in his pockets. Accusations are coming from speech bubbles. He is considered unworthy of the inheritance. Silhouettes of relatives discussing him are visible in the window opposite. A young man appears in the doorway with a worried expression. He asks what is going on, breaking the silence and drawing the attention of the entire room. A man in a business suit accuses Lin Wei and Lin Chuan of damaging the family business. There are 5 people in the room. One of them can hardly contain his anger and wonders if he is ashamed to question his grandfather's decision. The atmosphere is tense. The woman in the blue patterned top furiously demands that he be silent. She demands that Lin Qingjun prove his family affiliation and suggests doing so at his mother's grave. The subtext is a dispute over kinship and naming rights. A woman with dark hair tied back and wearing a blue dress with flowers speaks with a sly half-smile at the foot of the stairs. She refers to the kidnapping of the mother and suggests asking the father for confirmation. The remark sounds provocative. An aggressive man with blonde hair points his finger at a woman with long pink hair. He accuses her of being an outsider, despite her claim to be family. She stares into his eyes, not giving in to him. A young man in a white t-shirt and shorts sits against the wall, holding a strange animal that resembles a mask. He demands in a firm tone that his wife apologize immediately. His face is tense. A man in a suit clutches his face in horror, his gaze on the door. On the other side, someone is holding an object, threatening to kill. A massive chandelier hangs above them. The atmosphere is tense to the limit. The woman, in a rage, grabs the man by the collar and demands an explanation for beating her son. The man remains cool and states that the child was impudent and deserved punishment. The conflict escalates. A man with dark hair in a blue shirt with a phone in his hand shouts for the police to be called immediately. His face is sweaty, his expression panicked. Around him is a chaotic background with red flashes. The pink-haired woman gives a stern warning not to disturb Lin Qingjun's house. She mentions the possibility of police intervention and threatens consequences for disrespecting elders. There is a group standing on the floor in a cage. One of the characters is pulling another by the hand, pushing him forward. 2 people nearby are watching. One is turning away. The tension is growing. A serious scene is brewing. A man with dark hair pulled back into a bun stands in a room with bright lighting and harsh shadows. He speaks with fury and a demanding tone, insisting on submission to authority. A man in a suit clutches his chest, his face contorted with anger. Behind him, a woman in a blue dress screams Zhang Xuan's name. The atmosphere is dramatic and urgent, heightening the tension in the conflict. A man in casual clothes with a firm gaze tells a woman that she is his wife, and he is obliged to protect her. The woman, touched by his words, quietly thanks him. A woman with short blonde hair is chatting animatedly with Qingjun, while a man in a formal suit frowns, condemning someone's cruelty and urging him to leave the scene as quickly as possible. In a spacious hall with an elegantly patterned floor, a woman with long pink hair asks Zhang Xuan to join her. He agrees without hesitation and in a reserved manner. A man stands in front of a large tombstone with a photograph of a woman and carefully arranged white lilies. He addresses his late mother, telling her how he feels. It is a moment of quiet grief and remembrance. Under a gray sky and rain, a woman with pink hair holds an umbrella, worriedly telling her that her grandfather has little time left and that disputes over inheritance could ruin everything. A man stands silently nearby, shielding her with his umbrella. A woman in an orange dress and yellow jacket sits on a stone bench in the rain. Her eyes are worried. She speaks of an impending threat, as if she does not believe that it is possible to stop what is happening. A young man in dark clothes holds an umbrella over a girl, looking forward. He asks if she is ready to let go of everything that weighs her down. His voice is calm, his presence reassuring. The pink-haired woman, clenching her fists, accuses the Lin family of greed, her voice shaking with anger as she warns that if they take over the company, everything will collapse. A man hugs a woman with pink hair tightly as they stand on a wet sidewalk, a fallen umbrella next to them. He whispers that he will never leave her. Their silhouettes dissolve in the rainy haze. He is kneeling, holding her in his arms. She rests her head on his shoulder, holding scarlet flowers. There is soft light and peace all around. There is a silent unity between them at this moment. Two people are standing at a bus stop. One has headphones and a cap. The other has his hands in his pockets. He says he is going to check out the orphanage, hinting at concern and personal interest. A young man with a tense face looks away. A bald man with tattoos approaches him, puts his hand on his shoulder, and asks him forcefully if he needs anything special. Two identical bald men appear. They stand in front of the boy, threatening him with consequences and insisting that he come with them. The pressure mounts. Two people drag a lifeless body to the pink bus number 54. A guy with headphones watches from the side. An inner voice tells him to wait until the crowd disperses. It will be easier to clear the stage. In a narrow alley in front of a brick wall, three bald men in suits are holding a boy down. One is grabbing his arm, another is saying something threateningly, the third is watching silently but sternly. Three tattooed men gather together. One of them hoarsely commands, "Finish him!" Their faces are full of determination. They are ready to act without hesitation. The man with his dark hair tied up, his eyes still closed, gives a cold order. "Kill." He calls the others useless, as if he has already signed their death warrant. A shadowy figure, crouched by the water, addresses a bare foot in a slipper. In a submissive tone, he asks for instructions, clearly a servant or subordinate in the hierarchy. A bald man with glasses and a purple shirt stands against a brick wall. He holds up his finger and speaks with urgency, as if revealing something. Smoke swirls around his feet, creating an ominous atmosphere. In a narrow alley, a man in a white shirt stands between two wounded men. From behind, a red-haired man commands that the suspects be captured and the bandits detained. Control, chaos, and a determination to restore order dominate the scene. A young man with his hair tied back looks at his handcuffed wrists in shock. His surprise is so great that the only thing he can utter is a confused, "Nani?" A man in a business suit holds his phone convulsively, beads of sweat running down his forehead. He is shocked by the news, incredulously asking about someone's arrest. In a dimly lit interrogation room, a blindfolded man sits quietly at a wooden table. His hands are folded in his lap, and he does not speak. The sign points to the Yinzhou police station. The red-haired woman casts a demanding glance, insisting that she be told the boss's name immediately. There is icy determination in her voice. A young man with a top-knot haircut theatrically declares his self-sacrifice by comparing his meekness to that of a female tyrannosaurus. The ironic scene is filled with absurdity and sarcasm. A woman in a uniform with a police badge leans toward a visibly nervous man. She smiles cheerfully, asking if he is the victim. Tension and mistrust swirl in a purple-pink swirl around their faces. The red-haired woman grabs the dark-haired man by the collar with fury, demanding an explanation for the broken limbs. He, however, acknowledges her skill with complete confidence, as if admiring her aggression. The woman in the blue shirt towers over her interlocutor, clenching her fist. She screams in anger, resolutely rejecting everything her opponent says. Her anger leaves no doubt. The policeman forcefully kicks down the door and loudly orders Han Wenru to raise his hands immediately. The tension reaches its peak. The man, looking agitated, raises his thumb, demanding the immediate release of the innocent man. His voice is decisive, and his eyes are full of conviction. A woman with short red hair points at the man below, accusing him of crimes despite his serene expression. He is called an innocent baby, but the accusations grow louder. A uniformed policeman, frowning, points his finger at a young woman, demanding proof of her involvement in the fight. The atmosphere is tense. The woman walks out of the room with determination, raising her hand. Two men watch her leave, one of them asking her to find evidence. She sets out to find the truth. A man in a suit holds handcuffs, smiling nervously. He mumbles an apology and assures that he will immediately release the detainee. In front of him is a man in a blue shirt, listening attentively. Two women stand at the steps of a building. The blonde asks a question of her pink-haired friend, who, looking at her phone, explains that Zhang Xuan is probably busy with work and therefore unavailable. The women walk through a spacious hall with mannequins. One suggests going inside and waiting, the other agrees. At that moment, someone calls out from behind the camera. They are calling Xing Han. The pink-haired woman looks tense as she addresses a man named Song Tao, who raises his hand in greeting, smiling. She laments in her mind that this man has been stalking her since college. A man with lavender hair politely addresses a woman in a black dress, asking if she was at the concert. She is surprised by his appearance and the unexpected question. The woman in black jerks her hand away, rejecting Song Tao's touch. In front of the shadow of his figure, she loudly demands that he dare not touch her. Her voice is full of disgust. Inside a building with large windows, two women are leading each other by the hand. One of them is persuading her friend to ignore what is happening and just leave. Their actions reflect haste and a desire to avoid trouble. A woman stares at a photograph of a girl confronting three men in suits indoors. The question rings in her mind. Was she wrong in her judgment? Tension and doubt clouded her mind. A young man lounges in an office chair, his leg on the armrest, eating a watermelon. He looks like he belongs at home, not at a police station. Someone off camera condemns his behavior as outrageous. A girl in a short skirt stands with a tense face and a clenched fist. A man, looking lazy and relaxed, hands her a piece of watermelon, as if inviting her to settle the conflict peacefully. A red-haired woman with flames in her eyes clenches her fist and threatens to make someone eat something with a scream. Her determination leaves no doubt. She will not back down. The character bursts into the room and shouts bad news to the boss. Everything about his posture and voice screams urgency. Time is running out. A woman in a white blouse abruptly pushes a policeman towards an office where there are monitors behind a table. Her actions surprise those present, especially the chestnut-haired man who is trying to justify himself. Outside the building, a young man smiles while holding a phone. Behind him, an older man waves his hand, as if seeing him off with a little sadness. The scene is full of lightness and warmth. The man, his hair tied back, holds a smartphone, his face sweaty and anxious. He remembers his promise to take Xing Han to the concert and realizes he's late. A small character runs away from a billowing white cloud through the city streets. An inner voice frantically searches for an excuse for being late. Under the starry sky, two women have a heart-to-heart conversation. One of them asks if Qingjun remembers how she wished in college for her beloved to play for her on stage. A woman with flowing hair and a questioning look expresses doubt in romantic dreams, calling them naive. On stage, under the spotlights, a speaker takes the stage, announcing a special request received. In front of him are the audience, immersed in anticipation. A man in glasses and an orange tie takes the microphone. He smiles as he announces that someone is about to declare their love to the woman who is everything to them. In the purple twilight, two women, one with pink hair, exchange tense glances. The one in pink asks what is going on. The atmosphere thickens with uncertainty. A bouquet of bright red roses floats against the night sky. A question to Xing Han comes from the darkness, and the scene builds to a climax of confession. The man holds a bouquet and, addressing the crowd, speaks of his love, which began at their first meeting and has not faded over the 5 years. The audience freezes, delighted by the sincerity of the moment. The character on stage, in the spotlight, admits that his behavior may seem rude, but he cannot remain silent. He declares his love Frankly, despite the awkwardness, a woman with pink hair tugs at a child's hand, urging Michelle to follow them up the stairs into a dimly lit room with velvet chairs. They hurry to take their seats. A gray-haired man in an elegant suit kneels, holding red roses. His confession is addressed to Qinghan. He speaks of love in front of everyone. In the crowd, Qinghan looks confused and quietly indignant. Voices from all sides are urging her to accept the offer. Here, there is only one thing on her mind: how to get rid of such an obsessive admirer. The guards grab a man in a suit who is futilely waving a fan full of money. He loudly protests, insisting that he is already paid. But he is escorted out. Orders are orders. A man in a formal suit and a snow-white shirt sits in the dark, playing the piano. He has headphones in his ears. Around him is a rural silence, in which everything seems forbidden. Only music is the only thing left. A lone figure at the piano, illuminated by a purple light. The stage is deserted, and the music echoes. It is an intimate, quiet moment for oneself. A woman with long pink hair looks ahead in amazement, her eyes shining as she recognizes the melody. It is her favorite piece, Echoes of Life. The man speaks softly, with a gentle smile. He describes how she appeared before him, as a spirit, as pure beauty emerging from the light. All around her, petals and radiance. Two women suddenly notice Zhang Xuan. One exclaims, touching her face in shock. Emotions, like a flash, overwhelm them. Two silhouettes are reflected in the pupils of a close-up. One of the characters asks with shock in his voice if this is possible, because he does not believe his eyes. The man with his hair tied up, looking forward, quietly thanks Qinghan and asks if he can hug her. His voice is soft, and his gaze is sincere. A woman with pink hair, tears in her eyes, hugs Zhang Xuan. In the background is a starry sky, and everything she wanted came true thanks to him. She sits him down next to her and asks him to just listen to the music. The tickets were her concern, even if he was late. Her voice is reproachful and caring at the same time. A man with long hair gestures excitedly as he tells a woman with pink hair about his encounter with Master Pajef. He proudly announces that he has received 2 autographs, as if sharing a rare and precious victory. He smiles with a little excitement, holding up a signed photograph of the bearded master. Turning to those around him, he offers the rare trophy, as if asking, who is worthy of receiving it? A woman with pink hair beams with happiness, holding a CD in her hands like a treasure. Among the crowd of the theater, her eyes sparkle with delight. Someone nearby jokes that she only got the disc because she was late. Sitting next to her, the blonde gently touches her friend's shoulder and, looking at the card, confidently confirms, this is definitely Pajef's handwriting. Their faces are lit up with quiet joy. The blonde woman leans over slightly and asks how he managed to get the master's signatures in the first place. There is interest and slight admiration in her voice. A man in a suit with a red bow tie asks for another meeting in a reserved manner. His manner is emphatically polite, asking for a few instructions, as if it were a matter of great importance. Wearing glasses and a suit, one of the colleagues reminds the bearded man that their achievements are recognized, but asks him not to lose his head in success. The bearded man only nods more enthusiastically, filled with pride. A lonely figure in the corridor among columns and light snow. The man, lost in thought, anxiously asks himself how the shelter is doing now. The scene is full of tender care and concern. The red-haired girl hugs his leg with a joyful smile, clinging to him like a close relative. He stands motionless, confused, and she glows with happiness. In the hallway, surrounded by children, a woman with red hair smiles. She says that the children never stop asking about him, and her voice is filled with warmth. The same woman, looking worried, explains that thanks to official support, the leveling of the hill and the demolition of the shelter have been postponed. Her eyes sparkle with hope. A girl with wavy hair playfully winks, inviting to dinner. In the background is a red car. The conversation hints that there is an important goal behind this dinner: protecting the shelter. A confident man offers to choose a meeting place, or, if there is no preference, he will do it himself. The warm light reflected on his face hints at coziness and relaxation. The woman next to the red car smiles defiantly. She claims that women always make better choices, and the clenched fist of the man in the frame is a sign of questionable agreement. Inside the car, he asks her directly about the invitation. She answers calmly, saying that they are going to the house of her teacher, who has long wanted to see him. Standing by the car, the man repeats her words in confusion, the question mark next to him reflecting his inner bewilderment. The woman, looking serious, talks about the economics professor who inspired her to do charity work. She mentions that he is following the shelter project and dreams of meeting Zhang Xuan. They stand together at the door. She rings the bell. He watches, waiting for an answer. His voice is reserved but curious. Who will open it? A man in glasses asks clarifying questions, standing next to surprised people. A third man is silent, smiling mysteriously. The questions hang in the air. The woman, looking up, holds Zhang Xuan's hand and introduces him to her brother. The brother is tense, reserved. His gaze says, he did not expect such an acquaintance. The man in the suit raises his hand in greeting. The other, with blue hair and glasses, invites you in with a slight smile. Their exchange is polite and formal. The woman, perplexed, asks why they are hostile to her, since she has done nothing wrong. The man walks away from the table in silence, and she remains standing by the wall, waiting for an answer. The woman explains that before them is the son of her teacher, Kung Shu. He is pleasant, but a little arrogant. There is irony in her voice, and a slight wariness in her eyes. The girl asks where the teacher himself is. Her brother, pouring tea in the cozy library, replies that he went shopping and will be back soon. A man in glasses holds a tablet and talks cheerfully about rising stocks. He is convinced that now is a great time to buy. The woman leans over, showing the tablet to the man in the dark suit. She wants his opinion. He answers dryly, "These stocks are a dud. Investing in them is throwing away money." Irritated, the man in glasses shouts, calling his interlocutor a fool. He refers to the theory. Everything is calculated. Growth is possible. Books do not lie. With a slight grin, holding his glass, Zhang Xuan counters. If the theories are so correct, why haven't their authors become rich? The market, he says, is controlled by capitalists. In a simple kitchen, a man in glasses continues the argument. He says that capitalists are just lucky, but his voice already sounds uncertain. The surroundings emphasize the everyday nature of the conversation. The man in the suit crosses his arms and makes a challenge. He is sure that the stock price will fall in 15 minutes. The smile on his face is cheeky and challenging. A man with dark blue hair and glasses shouts menacingly, his face contorted with anger. In a fit of emotion, he declares that if he wins, no one will come near Zhao Ru. A serious man with a sharp gaze holds a phone with an active call on the screen. He warns his interlocutor. Behind the tempting profit of shares, there is a trap. The man in the round glasses condescendingly declares that 3 million is nothing. His grin is full of self-confidence, and his voice sounds mocking, a drop in the bucket. A young man with a tablet and glasses asks a sharp question, accusing his interlocutor of pretense. His gaze is sharp, his intonation is probing. A sharp focus on the character's face with glasses, eyes wide, eyebrows drawn together. He notices the fall and exclaims, "The tension of the moment is in the air." The smartphone on the table shows an active call. The dialogues sound alarm. The sum of 700,000 has disappeared. The culprits are inexperienced scammers who do not even know how to lure correctly. A young man with glasses and gray hair sits in a dim room with a holographic screen in front of him. He reflects on his theoretical knowledge and his disappointment at how he is perceived as just another newbie. The red-haired woman jumps up from her seat when she hears a knock on the door. Someone off-camera says, "The teacher is back." A man in glasses and a sweater stands by the door with a bag of vegetables. His face is calm. The homely atmosphere emphasizes the simple, everyday moment. A man with brown hair and a slight smile raises his hands in greeting. His tone is one of surprise at the unexpected meeting. His voice is warm. A woman with long hair holds a flower pot and asks about Zhang Xuan. The older man replies that he knows him by another name. The woman is wary, and he is willing to reveal details. The man stands before a glittering crowd and money floating in the air. He is introduced as the God of Wall Street, his pose confident, triumphant. A man in a suit stands with his back to the viewer, a shimmering city in front of him. Bright screens, a night scene. Everything emphasizes success and power. Two interlocutors discuss an incredible financial breakthrough. From 1.3 million, 150 million were raised in 2 months. Their faces are filled with shock. A man with a confident smile announces that his hedge fund has become the first in the world. He sits quietly, but there is pride in his voice. A man in glasses tells a legend. The man who became an icon of Wall Street gave his entire fortune to help children. His voice is full of reverence. The young woman freezes, covering her mouth with her hand. Her eyes are wide, her cheeks are flushed, as she is shocked by her decision to give up everything for others. The purple-haired man screams in anger, accusing Lin Qinghan's husband of ruining his music career. His face shows resentment and anger. Lin Wei looks at him sternly, asking a direct question. Is he an artist or a musician? His voice is harsh, his posture is dominant. A man with long blonde hair angrily pins another man to the floor with his foot. He insults him, calling him a worthless dog and threatening his family. The same man gives a week to carry out the order. Destroy Lin Qingjun's reputation at any cost. The words sound like a sentence. The blonde in the tracksuit speaks confidently as she stands outside the building. She points out the obviousness of the suit's choice, looking at the woman in yellow with superiority. Two women discuss Arc Fang's boss. One suggests a strategy. Create the illusion of cooperation without making any real commitment. The woman with long pink hair speaks sharply, accusing unknown people of deliberately attacking Lin. Her eyes are blazing with determination. The same woman enters the spacious building, carrying a bag. She says, Arc is the main investor in the province, and with him she is going to save the family. The man with short blonde hair is nervous. He thinks about the impossibility of a partnership with Qinghan and is afraid of the consequences. Fang Zhao looks at his interlocutor doubtfully. He talks about the painting being fake and cannot understand how this is possible. The duplicate was made 3 years ago. A woman with pink hair walks down the hallway. She calls out to a man, President Fang. The interior is softly lit. The walls are decorated with posters. A bald, elderly man asks why she came. She, holding a tablet, answers seriously. She wants to discuss business cooperation. The man with gray hair reads a book and doubts the benefits of the plan. The woman with pink hair speaks calmly, considering both short-term and long-term prospects. The dialogue is tense and businesslike. A man with neatly combed gray hair and a smug grin addresses President Lin. He frankly admits that he has been focusing solely on short-term investments, deliberately ignoring long-term benefits, and at the same time, formally apologizes. A woman with long, luxurious pink hair is persistently addressing a man named President Fang. She is clutching a folder tightly in her hands and has thrown a yellow jacket over a bright orange top. Her eyes are full of determination and anxiety. The woman with pink curls looks in surprise at the cheerful athlete in a comfortable suit, who shares the news that she has made contact. She explains that since Fang Zhao appreciates Chinese painting and Zhang Xuan is an expert in it, everything will be settled. The whole scene is about trying to arrange support for Fang Zhao's interests. The excited and slightly sweaty woman with pink hair and wide eyes confidently declares that the whole story with the painting is fiction, adding that the interlocutor knows nothing about art. An elderly gentleman and a young man in a formal suit look up at the painting. The young man makes a comment about the winter plum blossoms painted by Master Yan of the Tang dynasty, noting that the ink has faded noticeably. In a softly lit room, two men are talking. The older one asks the younger about the origin of the painting, wondering if it is really by Master Yang. The younger man evasively replies that it is both true and not true. In a bright room with panoramic windows, two men stand side by side. One of them is tall, the other is older, with a clean-shaven head. Both are dressed strictly and look ahead intently. Behind the scenes, speech can be heard, the words barely perceptible. Song Tao, with his elegant appearance, slicked back blue hair, suit, and scarlet tie, is sarcastically criticizing someone as an imposter and a false genius. He is accusing his interlocutor of trying to create an aura of mystery. A man with brown hair speaks calmly, looking away. Behind him stands another man, in a black suit and red tie, with purple hair. The first one notes that there is no need to hurry, because the other one will soon understand everything himself. The auctioneer, standing behind the podium in the spotlight, addresses the audience seated in the hall. He announces the start of the charity auction, emphasizing that 80% of the proceeds will go to the Red Cross Fund. A man in a business suit leans back in his chair and asks questions of a woman holding a tablet. She answers clearly, using professional terms, discussing the financial aspects of a future deal. A man with sleek hair and a stylish jacket speaks confidently about his responsibility. A woman with pink hair listens attentively, while a star pattern unfolds in the background, emphasizing the solemnity of the moment. A man with a microphone presents a traditional Chinese painting of blossoming branches, which is being shown by two women in red qipao dresses. He explains that it is an original by Master Yan of the Tang dynasty, verified by experts. An elderly man with a worried face sits and ponders whether the painting he bought 3 years ago is a fake. Bids are heard around him, from 150 to 400,000. He mentions that his painting has been officially confirmed. The atmosphere at the auction is tense. Participants with signs furiously outbid each other with high bids. Each is trying to secure a price and win recognition. There is excitement and tension in the air. On a pink background, a close-up of a hand holding a magnifying glass with the word 007 written on it. Below it, 3 characters stand, 2 women and 1 man, surrounded by skittles. The price tag is $5 million. The auctioneer, holding a gavel and microphone, shouts out the price of $5 million. The room pulses with energy, the stage lights up, underlining the significance of the moment. An older man with a stern look takes the microphone. He categorically states that the price of the painting should not exceed $4 million and orders the auction to end, taking control into his own hands. A woman in a yellow top with pink hair and a folder in her hands watches a man in a suit, barely visible in the background. She wonders inwardly if he is going to buy something for President Fang. 2 women discuss the terms of a business deal involving President Wang. One is skeptical about the idea of exchanging a $500 million agreement for a painting worth several. One covers her face with her hand, the other is shocked. A man in a black suit holds a yellow piece of paper with his hand raised confidently. Opposite him, another man in a light suit freezes in shock, his eyes wide, his mouth slightly open. Papers swirled in the air, emphasizing the emotionality of the victory. The man in the white shirt with dark hair suggests that Mr. Fan has a similar painting at home and apparently is unable to distinguish the original from the copy. A balding man with a mustache comments on the purchase of a fake painting for $5 million, explaining that it is easier for him to continue business relations. He adds that there is only one job left, so there is no need to worry. A young man with dark hair pulled back into a bun explains something to an older man with a bald head. The older man looks confused and asks a clarifying question. The younger man points a finger to reinforce his explanation. A confident man with his hair pulled back demands an explanation from his elderly interlocutor, who told him that the painting he tore up was a fake. The elderly man is stunned. His speech is interrupted by shock.